I would like also to acknowledge the traditional owners. I would like to thank the NTEU for putting on this forum. I think we need more forums, not less. And I think we would like to welcome all the candidates to any future forums. I wish my opponents a very good and positive campaign, although not too much success. It's very unusual to have 3 academics, let alone 3 from the same university, all chasing the same seat in Parliament. I think it's a very healthy development. Compared, say, with Germany's Bundestag, Australian academics are deplorably underrepresented in this nation's parliament. Most traffic is from politics to academia, not the other way around. But how mistaken are many politicians when they move to an academic post somewhere and citing their desire to spend more time with their families. I have a bit to say about the student experience, universities as institutions and employers, academic freedom, and say quite a bit more about research. For a country in which the very first PhD in any discipline, in any university, was awarded only in 1949, we've really come an enormous way in the lifetime of many of us here seated at the front. And now we have nearly 1 million students in tertiary education. So we should not overlook the incredible growth in this sector in a relatively short period compared to many of the countries with whom we compete. And I think that the best and the brightest of our students are continuing to do very, very well. I'm much more concerned about those students who come, frankly, much less well prepared and often engage only very loosely with their university experience. I believe that they have lost out in the scale, the sheer scale and the commodification of the university education of today. And I think a real challenge we face is to help young people to make very good initial choices on leaving school, but to have much more flexibility between vocational education and academic education. And I think even this traffic could go the other way. There are a number of university courses where people could benefit greatly from modules of vocational education as part of their degrees. Those two sectors should be more of a continuum and less of a dichotomy. Now, it's true that many students, unfortunately, do graduate with substantial HECS debts, and for some people this is a very big issue. I have to say that in talking to my own students, it is not the #1 issue that they raise. They're more concerned with their experience actually at the university. I think HECS actually is fundamentally a pretty fair scheme, and it's why so many countries around the world are looking to it as a possible model. It is important that students make some contribution to the education that they receive. But we could make this burden very much smaller, and there are lots of ways to do this. One simple way would be to remove indexation of the debt, so that the debt is simply repaid in the value that it had at the time of graduation. This would not really be a big burden financially on this country at all. I would like to see, in terms of the student experience, much more interstate study. I think Australian undergraduates are far too parochial, and partly it's because of the cost. To enable this, we need significant funding of, apart from anything else, affordable student accommodation, which I think is lamentably absent. Not just for undergraduates, but for postgraduate students and overseas students, especially overseas postgraduates with students with families. I spent 3 years in married student housing at the University of Wisconsin and Madison, and not only was it affordable, it was also one of the most culturally enriching environments that I have ever been in. And I believe that if we were to invest in this sort of infrastructure for accommodation of overseas students, we might be able to address some of the shoddy treatment that a number of overseas students receive. I'm highly supportive of sensible diversification of universities in this country. Minister Julie Bishop likes to talk about the US, where major research institutions, small liberal arts colleges, the land-grant universities, and 2-year community colleges all coexist. But these grew organically and over a long period. They did not occur by prescription from the government. Government, if it wants to enable sensible diversification, must be far more hands-off. It should continue to monitor university outcomes very closely, but not tinker so much with the processes within universities. However, if universities look too much like each other, I do think in some measure they have themselves to blame as well. There are unfortunate similarities, I think, between the Australian University of 2007 and the major political party of Australia in 2007. Far too much advertising, PR, spin, a focus on their place in the market, a focus on each other, and endless self-promotion. It's a bit like Coke versus Pepsi. The next government should assist universities give more security and career structure to the small army of part-time and sessional teaching staff, Short-term research assistants, postdocs and others, these are central to the success of our universities and they deserve much better. I defend, in terms of academic freedom, anyone's right to choose a topic and a method of study, but any academic and any postgraduate, come to that, should be prepared to stand up publicly and to defend their work, and to defend their choice of that work, and to defend the methods by which they have conducted that work. We have become reluctant to air issues as freely and as publicly as we should. For example, on balance, I thought that the controversial standoff between Iran's President Ahmadinejad and Colombia's Lee Bollinger was actually quite salutary. And even if it didn't clear the air, it made very significant views much more widely known. Internal debate within universities also needs protection. Our own university newspaper at the Queensland University of Technology, for example, no longer even takes letters to the editor. It's just an arm, really, of the university's propaganda machine. The intensely managerial style of the modern university has a deadening effect on lively discussion and even paradoxically of academic issues. Research, of course, is crucial to our nation's future, and we have badly stalled on research for two reasons. Our total research investment lags many OECD competitors, however you measure it. One single university in the United States, Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, has an annual research budget which is 20% higher than the combined sum of all of the research grants awarded by the Australian Research Council and the National Health and Medical Research Council combined. That's one university. Admittedly, a big one. Major growth in research funding is one of the best investments we can make for this country. Perhaps even more important than dollars is to de-emphasize so-called research management. I strongly agree with Thomas Barlow's position in his book last year that it is the individual researcher and the small, self-organizing research group which is the essence of any dynamic research culture. And this is the level that should be the primary focus of support. We spend far too much time trying to corral researchers into one grouping or another, often for reasons of external presentation. And that's why I too believe that the RQF is largely, regrettably, a colossal distraction. I doubt that it will have any beneficial effect on research quality. The estimated $75 million cost to the government and universities so far would have been far better spent, in my view, funding the research councils to set up a much faster review cycle every 6 months and go to 2 rounds per year. We should shift the bulk of block infrastructure and research training grants to a generous overhead attached directly to research grants, to project grants, and let the research teams around the country fight it out on a level playing field. Group of 8, ATN, regional universities should not be the issue. And that's the way I believe that we can achieve a healthy and competitive diversity of institutions in this country. Thank you.